is the Apparelist podcast, designed to bring you real-life conversation about high-level topics relevant to the decorated apparel community. Hello, apparel decorating community. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Apparelist podcast. Each month, we bring in high-level industry guests to talk about important topics in the community. This month, I am beyond excited to share that we have a guest here to discuss some M&A activity as well as big headlines, big news. Joining me is Frank Myers, CEO of S&S Activewear. We're going to talk to Frank about some really big headlines to hit the apparel industry. Of course, the S&S and alphabroder merger. Frank will provide some updates on that merger, but we'll also dive into M&A trends we're seeing on a higher level throughout the industry. Frank, thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I mean, it's a great day. It's beautiful out during this recording and, just a lot happening in the industry right now. So, of course, Frank, let's just jump into it. The acquisition was big news in the industry, right? Shook up a lot of things, got a lot of people talking. At this stage, we are now, several months in. So can you share, any insight into, how the process got started and, kind of soup to nuts, start to finish, where we were at, when the headlines broke to today?
Sure. So to kind of reset, I think announced the transaction in July. And for a combination like this, there's a big process around financing and regulatory approval, and a bunch of other work that took place through the summer. And the businesses officially came together October 1st. So, up until October 1st, there's limited amounts of information that we could even see. We didn't really know a ton of customer info, vendor info, product info. So, we were planning for the integration, but not really able to make a ton of huge decisions, before we closed. And so the first 30, 60 days after we closed, we're really focused on evaluating and understanding the final pieces of what we actually had acquired. And so, it's things like, do we want to continue to operate under two brands, alphabroder and S&S? Do we, where does the Primeline hard goods business fit in? Where does apparel decoration fit in? And so, we spent the first 60 days kind of answering those questions and coming up with a longer range integration plan. And so that basically involved every department from both companies. We created an integration management office that had representatives from each of the two legacy businesses by function, and a whole governance structure around kind of decision making and how we would operate, through the integration. Through that work, we were able to identify an opportunity to go significantly faster than what we had originally planned to do. So, we're sitting here end of April, and, really happy to say from a customer perspective, all the product is available on S&S's website. You can order through API and get the benefit of the full network. And so, we've created the largest, both from a product diversity, but also inventory depth distributor in the world, really. So, over the next 45 days or so, we'll be completing the integration, sunsetting the alphabroder brand, and officially bringing together the sales force and everything else. But a ton of work has been completed and is accomplished, and we're getting great feedback from the market. As you look to Canada, we actually completed that integration about 3 weeks ago. So Canada is fully integrated, operating under S&S, one company, one sales force. So yeah, super, super exciting.
Yeah, I have to say, y'all have done a pretty good job keeping everybody updated. I personally subscribe to the updates, and I think that has been hugely important. I think a lot of people really appreciate that kind of communication that has been coming from your side of things.
Well, thank you. I appreciate hearing that. I'll take a pretty good score any day.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, I mean, you mentioned something that I think is, pretty significant, and that's, it's been a lot. There have been a lot of details, a lot of things that have to be worked out for something this major. So can you kind of talk a little bit about what the stages have looked like? What happened I don't want to say like significant challenges, but what have been some of the bigger challenges y'all have faced as you've gone through this process?
Yeah, I mean the both organizations are extremely customer centric, and so everything that we do because of our customers. And so, aligning on what the customer needs from us today and what they're going to need in the future is probably been the most kind of complex part to sort through. And so, like I mentioned earlier, like it's things like how does decoration fit? How do hard goods fit? What's the brand strategy? What's the product strategy? How do we achieve what we needed to achieve from a synergy perspective while enhancing the service model with additional distribution centers. And so we're super excited that we were able to like emerge from this with a better foundation as one combined company than we went in with as two separate businesses. So we're going to keep the Fresno alphabroder location, the Orlando alphabroder location, the Massachusetts alphabroder location. And so it'll be a huge improvement in service to those, regions, and like just kind of the outcomes have been great, but like getting to some of those decisions was definitely a lot of work and required thought from across the whole organization.
Yeah, I can only imagine what some of those conversations were like. Man, it must have been a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you can find yourself in rabbit holes pretty quickly because like every single detail, down to like where you're ordering boxes from and like how, up to really important things like how do you process payroll and like how do you report financial results and how do you, like, I mean, every single, call center, IT, like, I mean, just every detail had to be thought through for not only the individual companies, but then also how it comes together. So it's quite an exercise.
Yeah, and that's, I think, a lot of what, those behind the scenes details sort of sometimes float around in the outside of, your thought process, as outside observers looking in, as the apparel community looking in, decorators, promotional products distributors, everybody, watching this unfold, is there are quite a few more details that go into this than you might think. Like you said, you mentioned those little things like considering boxes and, where are they going to and where are they coming from, up to like the big payroll things. There are so many things that have to be dissected, discussed, and decided upon with something like this, which is why it takes a while to go through something this big.
Yeah, I mean, at first we thought it would take, around 2 years to kind of be
Yeah.
where we're at today. So we're super happy. It's been, 6 months really since we closed. And we're just really lucky to have great employees and leaders on both companies that have allowed us to move faster and customers who have been supportive and kind of now I think everybody's seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. And so we're happy to be where we're at.
Yeah. Talking a little bit more about where you're at, you did share a few updates with us, the Canada update, obviously, and then some updates with, various warehouses around the US location. Are there any other recent updates you can share with our listeners? Maybe some next big steps or any teasers that can get everybody looking forward to what's to come?
Yeah, so we had originally kind of announced earlier in the year that we were going to be converting to a single brand, towards the end of June, early July. That'll now be late May. So that's kind of like the final big piece of this coming together. And then, as we've done this integration, like something that's been kind of quietly happening in the background, but it's been a huge amount of work, is we've finished the automation across our whole network. So I think we have like 11 or 12 buildings that are, fully automated. And that work has all happened while we've been doing this integration. So you're really getting an amazing new, like really sophisticated distributor coming out of this on the other side in about 5 weeks here.
Wow. I personally am looking forward to all of the announcements. And, like it's very fascinating the integration under one brand umbrella. I mean, that's fascinating to us, and people in the industry are very interested.
Yeah, no, I mean, it should be the best solution possible for customers, like the best order accuracy, the deepest inventory, the broadest inventory, the most brands, like everything was built with a focus on what our customers want from us. And so, it's been a lot of work, but I think everybody will appreciate, what we've created on the other side here.
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt. So I kind of want to talk about, of course, this announcement got a lot of people talking, right? Everybody was kind of not in an uproar, but there were a lot of conversations when this first got announced. So now that the dust is settling a little bit, I don't want to say the dust has settled because it definitely has not. But now that it's settling a little bit, you guys are sort of, getting your arms around it. The industry is getting their arms around it. How do you think this news has impacted the apparel decorating community at large?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things we announced really early on was that we were going to cease doing apparel decoration, which alphabroder historically had done. And, I think the feedback from the decorator community was extremely positive around that. And actually a lot less blowback from the promotional products type customers where, they were primarily the ones using that service. So I think that really kind of disarmed people and gave them some proof points that we were in this for our customers and, to continue always had. So I think, at first people, I mean, no one likes change, right? So I think people were skeptical of what, we would be building with the combined business. But as we've gotten into it, we've taken a ton of feedback from, customers. We've basically spent the whole first quarter, meeting with all different types of customers, small, big, different channels, and making sure that we were, staying true to what they need. And I think now that they've seen what we're building, like people are excited about it versus scared, which is a great thing.
Yeah. I think a lot of that has to do with the communication that you guys have kept up with the customers. It's just being as transparent as possible with the industry and making sure everybody was kept up to date with like big announcements and things like that. And I think that really helps keep people sort of feeling like, hey, we're in this together kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, we totally are in it together. So like that communication piece has been a huge part of the focus. And like we're really fortunate. We have a great comms team, internal and external at S&S and AB. So it's like leveraging that team. They've had great ideas. And it's hard. Sometimes you get in this execution mode and you just like do. And you forget to kind of like stand up and explain why and bring people along. So I think, that's been we've gotten a ton of positive feedback about it, and it's been a big focus through the whole integration. And, I think over the next 6 weeks, you'll be hearing more from us than ever. We have a ton of exciting news, different partnerships, and kind of where we're going. So we're really excited to keep that coming.
Mm-hmm. Well, as a media outlet, we're always excited about big news and sharing that. So of course we will be listening. Switching gears a little bit. So of course, this was big M&A news, but we are sort of seeing this similar trend in the industry. A lot of partnership announcements, a lot of merger announcements, a lot of acquisition announcements over the last few years, right? Why do you think that trend is kind of not accelerating, but why are we seeing that trend kind of happening over the last few years? I mean, what's your insight or hot take on that?
Yeah, I mean, what's amazing about this industry is it's so fragmented. Like whether you look at decorators or PPDs or any of the other channels, it's like at the end of the day, it's people that are really entrepreneurial, really creative, and have really strong relationships with end users and their customers. And so the diversity of the use cases for all of our products is so broad. The number of customers and different people we're touching is so broad, and that's created this industry that's just like, very, very complicated, fragmented, distributed. And so, there is an opportunity to consolidate some of that. And I think what we've seen is, I think we're like a little bit behind the curve in terms of that trend that we've seen in other industries. There's a huge opportunity here to like scale some parts of this market and service the customer in a better way. But there's other parts where like I don't think they'll ever really be consolidated. Like, it really comes down to super strong relationships, super niche offering product that like gets homogenized and lost if you consolidate too quickly or not very thoughtfully. So like, I mean, I think we'll see continued consolidation like in our part of the value chain. But I think, there's a very long runway for sort of these independent, PPDs and distributors to exist and have really successful businesses without having to do M&A.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You started talking about what we might continue to see into the future. And obviously, there's a lot of global economic forces happening right now. We're not even going to go into that because it's chaotic, it's changing. That's fine. But you kind of started to allude to how, we are going to continue to see some change. There probably is going to be some consolidation, whatever that might look like. So, big crystal ball question. This is always a fun one to sit here and speculate. But, looking into the future of the industry when it comes to inventory, supply chain, all of this stuff, what would you say is kind of your big prediction or big, if something could happen, what might it be?
Yeah, I mean, I think our industry, I mean, particularly on the apparel side, is moving more and more towards the broader, $300 billion apparel market in the US. Like, this continued drive for customization, and this isn't like a 2 or 3 year trend or a result of anything that's happened in the last 3 weeks now. But I think there's just this big push towards more custom, specific, higher quality product, and the fact that that needs to happen closer to the consumer, I think is a huge tailwind for our whole industry. And so it's not a 2, 3, 5 year trend. Like, this is, I think probably around the rest of our lifetime. So I'm really excited about what that means because, layers on top of like the base just growth of our category, a huge opportunity for all of us to do more and different things and service different customers and, push more kind of the gray area between our channel and retail. And so it's super, super exciting. And I think we can, to that partnership concept that we were just talking about, like, I think if people, like lift up their head a little bit and think about different ways they can do what they're doing with different people and partner even locally with retail, like that's a huge opportunity versus just kind of, waiting for someone to walk into your screen printing shop and order something for their family reunion.
I truly hope everybody listening to this podcast just like really listen to what you just said. And really, and if you didn't, pause, stop, rewind, listen again, because I think what you said, we're seeing that too, right? And that impact is with, change in the industry comes, you have to rethink the way you do business and the way you approach your apparel decorating business. And so how are we looking for those opportunities to take advantage of that, to change with things and to grow? Because I think that's incredibly crucial. That's how the decorating industry is going to survive and thrive going forward. I could not agree more.
Yeah, and I think just identifying like new channels and opportunities, like, we've really focused in the last few years on the team space, on workwear, and these, like picking types of customers to really go focus on, depending on where we are in the economic cycle, can give you as a decorator or a distributor an opportunity to really grow no matter what's going on at the macro level and, like start to build a larger base and more diversified base of what you're doing.
Absolutely. Frank, I know your time is incredibly valuable, so we are coming up to the end of our episode, but before we let you go, we will of course provide plenty of links and information in our show notes, ways for people to learn more, to make sure they're subscribed to various mailing lists and whatnot. Anything you want to share as far as where people can go to learn more, how they can make sure they're staying connected to S&S and getting the latest updates.
Of course, yeah. So all of the latest information on our integration and our business can be found at ssactivewear.com. We have a ton of great resources there on not only kind of like where we're headed from a business perspective, but also a great education portal called the Press and S. Try and say that 5 times fast, but there's a link under our resources on our website under a section called the Hub that has a ton of content there. Podcasts, videos, different ideas to help you think about how to grow your business. So I'd encourage you to spend some time there. And just as an open invite, anybody that's interested in seeing any of our facilities, we'd love to have you as a guest. It's really, really cool, the robots we've put in. So please reach out. We'd love to connect with you in person.
I love that. And I will say personally, Apparelist has shared several of S&S's like blog posts, videos, and things like that. It's great content. So yes, please do make sure that you are staying connected to that. I love that. The Press and S. I had to slow down to say it. It's fine. It is very catchy though.
I'm glad to hear it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Frank.
Thank
We'll
you.
look forward to keeping everybody updated. We really appreciate you joining us for this month's episode of the Apparelist Podcast.
Thanks for having me. Have a great afternoon.